To the Shore's End is Wuthering Waves' 8th act in the first chapter called Jinzu Rising, or what we're going to call 1.3, because it's easier, and that's what people know it as. Everything's better in 1.3. The story, the acting, the lighting, and the environments are all steps forward for the game's publisher and developer, Kuro Games. And apparently, this game is terrible according to the latest gacha revenue reports. But I still love it. Let's get into it. So every gacha that's been releasing over the past year or two seems to be the gacha that's going to change the future of gacha gaming altogether. And the same sentiment is put towards a lot of the cornerstone patches for a lot of these games. And I find that rarely to actually be the case. But for Wuthering Waves 1.3, I can truly say it was a monumental update to the game that it desperately needed. That update didn't really come in any sort of the way of how the game functions. It's still Wuthering Waves. But what it did do is it added an actual layer of intrigue and progressed the story forward, kind of tied everybody over until we can get to 2.0. And we're expecting a lot out of 2.0, let's be honest. So, talking about Wuthering Waves and where it was, 1.0 was rough. Like, let's be honest, Wuthering Waves has had some peaks and valleys, but it's come a long way if we look at 1.3. And personally, I think where we are now in 1.3 should have been where we were in 1.0 when the game released, but we're looking in the past. We're here now. Let's move forward. I know that the game had a lot of technical issues, especially on the mobile side. I never really experienced any of those technical issues. I play on a PC client, and it didn't affect me. I did get affected in the most terrible way by getting a free 5-star collector and like a bunch of free polls and a bunch of other stuff. So I was really crying on the inside about the technical issues. And while I was actually enjoying it, if you couldn't pick up on sarcasm, I know there were others that were not. And that affected the game's performance because, well, if you can't play a game, then why are you going to stick around to play a game? There's so many offerings out there, you can just uninstall and play something else that's very similar. There are a lot of mirrors of Wuthering Waves out there. Not all of them do it the same way, but there are a lot of mirrors of Wuthering Waves, let's just say. Anyhow, it's kind of sad because while 1.0 started off rocky in the technical side, when you did get to play, you were greeted by something amazing. The flat voice acting of Yang Yang. So you made it through one hurdle and now you're running into a brick wall. I know the beginning of the game was largely considered a very flat, boring yap fest, and I went through it myself. I kind of agree. I was really trying to pay attention to what was going on so I could pick up on the story because, let's be honest, the terms in this game are about as clear as mud. So, I had to rewind it and like really figure out what a tacit discord is. And we'll go into that down. The terminology was crazy for me at the beginning of this game. Anyhow, while the game did finally pick up at the end of the game, like Act 4, 5, and 6, a lot of people left by then, or probably didn't make it to that point because of the various different issues they were running into and the fact that the game wasn't very entertaining at the jump. If you weren't interested in the visuals and how things looked, the sounds and the sights and exploring, and your whole thing is story, I could see you having dumped it back in Act 1 or 2 or something to that effect. And, there was tons of criticisms levied at the game in the beginning. And instead of kind of clamming up and doing what a lot of the previous gacha developers had done, Kuro Games took the reins, they took the feedback, they took the beatings, and they fixed and steadily started improving the game. Now, were they able to fix everything off the gate? No, they had to do hot fixes to fix, technical issues just to have people be able to play the game before they could worry about redubbing all the voice acting or redoing parts of the beginning story. And we're still not there yet because they want to actually get the treadmill moving here for the game and get us to 2.0, it feels like. 2.0 is coming really fast. 6 months into the game, I thought it'd be a year down the road, but here we are. Anyhow, because Girl Games did this, they listened so much to the community and started fixing stuff. This spawned what's kind of colloquially known in the gacha space as devs listened. And while a meme, it's true. And we've seen this spill over into other developers who had not listened to their communities for a very long time, and they started listening to them. Anyhow, enough about that. That's not about 1.3, and we'll talk about 1.0 down the road. Maybe I'll make a full in-depth, like, little mini review going over everything in the future. So fast forward 4 months, and now we're seeing a game in the state that it is now. Voice acting is better. The story is better. We're more intrigued. We know more about the characters. We know a lot less about the characters at the same time. But 1.3 introduces 2 new major characters. First is the millennia-old AI made out of sound waves, or sonoro in this game, the Shorekeeper. And she's been creeping for a while, it seems like. And then we meet another character, and it's the eons-old AI called Tethys, who's apparently been here before Rover even showed up and made the Black Shores. Anyhow, everything's a little weird. Shorekeeper has definitely gone through some gaslighting from Rover, I feel like, over the years, but we're heading in the right direction. Stick with me. So, both Shorekeeper and Tethys are pretty instrumental parts of the secret organization on Solaris 3 that keeps the Lament from destroying everything, called the Black Shores. The Black Shores is not only the organization's name, but it's the name of the island that they use as a home base. So, the Shorekeeper was built by Rover to keep Tethys in line, to make sure it keeps working the way it's supposed to be working. And when Rover disappeared for whatever reason long ago, she became the de facto leader, while Tethys was working hard to make sure Solaris 3 didn't suffer some devastating lament that kills all of civilization. Right? It had a job to do. Both these characters were pretty good additions to the story and really helped our character, the Rover, kind of figure out more about themselves. And while at the time the Shorekeeper came off as a bit too, let's say, possessive, overall she was done with a good performance and good voice acting. And while Tethys played a good supercomputer who's taking its job a little too seriously. But like I said, good characters overall, great additions. I can see both of them being major components and companions in the future. The Black Shores itself, as far as an environment, was pretty bleak. It was strange and beautiful. The whole island's cloaked in some sort of digital fog, so you can't see it from the outside, and there's like hologram islands projected out there. It's pretty cool, pretty high-tech and sci-fi compared to what we've seen in Jinzhou and Mount Firmament. Anyhow, Black Shores is pretty interesting. It's like really bleak looking, like I said, and it's full of a lot of grays and blues and purples, but I think they do a really good job of that aesthetically. Like when you're on a rocky outcropping somewhere, you kind of feel like you're on this alien world looking out over an ocean. And then when you turn and you see places like the greenhouse or any sort of developed area on the island, it looks very modern and lit up. The lighting was great above ground. I liked it most at night personally, but you know, they did a real good job bringing this vibe that they wanted to bring. And they backed that visual up with some really cool music as well. The Black Shores ambient music up top came off as very peaceful and hopeful, but like mysterious at the same time. Like you found this safe new home and it was all easy listening all the time type deal. And down below, when we go into the Tethys Deep, it felt much the same, but it was brighter, more digitized. Something had changed for sure. The skybox was this star field that looked a lot like how a circuit board's laid out, which I found very, very interesting. and it was predominantly dominated by this huge column of light shooting up into the star field, and that's Tethys, I suppose. It's just a big light cone. Anyhow, down below, the lighting was great as well. It definitely picked up the vibrancy of a lot of the colors down there, the purples and the blues and the kind of pinks too as well. It looked amazing. I liked the environment for 1.3. I liked the Black Shores topside, and I liked Tethys Deep. I thought they were good, they were new, they were fresh, but they weren't like overdone, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, the music down below for Tethys Deep was also great. It was more orchestral. There was definitely a lot of harmony in there. You had the singer. It felt very hopeful, and sometimes very like digitized in a way. They did a real good job with the music underlying this kind of like hopeful aspect overall for the game, I felt. So now let's quickly talk story. I'm going to warn you now, if you don't want spoilers, you haven't played the story, you don't want to hear somebody yap about the story and give some of their sentiments towards that, now's the time to click off. 100%, I don't blame you. Save yourself, play the story, it's good. If you want to stick with me, kind of hear my thoughts on it, here we go. So, the story, in the grand scheme of things for the story that we've been presented in Wuthering Waves so far, 1.3 did a good job in balancing kind of new revelations with new questions about who the rover is. Up until this point, not much had been made known like fact to us, like hard fact. We know we woke up. We had this unique power where we could chop back up monsters into our hand, which apparently some hero, some legend in ages past could do as well. We found out later we had a weird koala bear living in our hand where we can hoover stuff up, and it was hungry. What was it hungry for? To hoover up the monsters. Okay. Something weird's going on here for sure. We also knew the rover or someone like the rover had been around before on Solaris 3 in the Jinzhou area and helped kind of like establish Jinzhou. And we also know that when they showed up, they had showed up on the Black Shores before. And this was like 20 years ago. That's 1.0. 1.1 got our first solid clue as to maybe who we are. The godlike being that watches over the city of Jinzhou. Jue, this sentinel, told us that we were its arbiter. But what does that even imply? I don't know. I took it as like we're its master or creator or homie. I don't know. We were rocking out with the dragon at some point. Unfortunately, though, 1.2 didn't really do much to advance the rover story at all. It was more about everyone's favorite guy, Zhang Li Wao, doing his thing. We learned some info on Echoes and his backstory. The biggest thing about 1.2 is we got a free 5-star resonator who is banger. Zhang Li Yao is fantastic. If you missed him, I'm sorry. Hopefully he comes around another time. Anyhow, that leads us to 1.3. 1.3, we learned a pretty good bit. Enough at least to keep us intrigued, but not enough to figure it all out. TLDR, something's wonky in the port city. Rover goes to check it out. There's a data chip there mysteriously. How to get there? We don't know. Gravity's funky. We take the data chip, we get attacked by monsters, and who saves our butt? The shorekeeper. And what does she do? She teleports us to the Black Shores and dumps all Yang Yang and Chixia back home in Jinzhou so they don't have to flat voice yap me to death. I was appreciative of that. Anyhow, once we're at the Black Shores, we figured it's a good idea to put this mystery data chip that had a gravity ghost talking to us inside Tethys to figure out what's going on. And lo and behold, something goes wrong. Inside the chip was a digitized version of a necrostar or a black hole from whenever that city got all messed up. Now Tethys having a hard time digesting it. Okay. Shorekeeper enlists Rover to help her out, to help fix Tethys, get rid of the necrostar. We do it. We find out that long ago we've gaslighted Shorekeeper into loving us, and now she's growing feelings for some reason. And everything that's digital around here and these robots are getting personalities. Weird for sure. Anyhow, we go in, we save Tethys from the black hole, but Tethys eats Shorekeeper in return. We don't like this. We go save Shorekeeper, and everything's fine. Our AI girlfriend's back. Fantastic. But now the weird part is she's like still kind of part of Tethys. She has to stay on the Black Shores. She can't go with us. I don't know if that's because like she can't project her sonoro or sound wave form out further than that, or if she really just needs to be there because part of her is monitoring Tethys. And the bad programming in Tethys has been switched out for more moderate programming, let's say. So that's the story overall, like really quick. What did we learn from that story? Well, we learned Rover is actually the leader and creator of the Black Shores. We learned that he found Tethys, the supercomputer, before he even came, like he found it when he came to the Black Shores. He didn't make Tethys. And something happened where Tethys had been here for eons, and we don't know what it's been working on, but Rover has been using it, or it has been at work to solve the Lament crisis. Rover makes the Shorekeeper, his waifu AI, to kind of keep Tethys in check. And really what she's supposed to do is get herself implanted as the core of Tethys, I think, to chill Tethys out, because Tethys a little neurotic, let's say. So what's Tethys doing? Well, Tethys is apparently creating simulated civilizations, whole planets, and destroying them with simulated laments over and over again. The star field in the bottom of Tethys Deep, each star represents a civilization or a planet to Tethys, a simulated digital civilization. And Tethys is systematically basically killing them off. And we learn that people in those simulations think they're actually people. So now we're balls deep into simulated universe theory, right? And if that's true, then Tethys is a real bad guy, because Tethys playing God, making civilizations and killing them. And it's basically like mass genocide on a universal scale that this thing's doing to save our reality. And at this point, I don't even know if this reality is actually our reality. I have my speculations as to what's been going on and why Rover's been gone. Real quick, there's a point where Shorekeeper says she's been watching Rover as a bright star in the sky, going from star to star. I think Rover put himself in the simulation and is going to play hero at all these different laments or places before they die. He's inserted himself as the X factor into the Tethys universe to see if he can come up with a way to stop the lament. Because they keep talking about this Mobius loop thing and how what has happened will happen, and they always come back to the same thing. I don't know. Things are getting freaky for sure, but it's very, very interesting. I love this type of sci-fi. Did Rover figure out how to stop the laments? We don't know, because he can't remember. But if Tethys is playing God and killing all these simulated civilizations, and Rover's been going from one to the other, the implications are kind of crazy. Oh, and some other speculation. The Sentinels, like Jue, who are supposed to protect all these civilizations or different cities on these planets, I think those are programs that Rover implemented into the simulated civilizations, or even created here, to protect the cities until he can come and play hero, basically. So that's my speculation. The story overall, it was great. It moved stuff forward. We learned about the Shorekeeper. We learned that Rover had been around for a while. We learned that he's been up to something, trying to figure out how to stop the lament. Something big, something real big, because we've been killing, I don't know, trillions of people, simulated people to do this. And these people know that they're simulated people, and they think it's nuts. Anyhow, The story was great to me. The environment was good. I liked the characters. They need to keep this going. I'm really hopeful that 1.4 doesn't become a filler patch. They need to add something on. They need to make the story go deeper, because we can't have another 1.2 filler patch. We can't have another moon chasing festival. That's all I got. If you'd like to hear more of these types of reviews and just me yapping about what I think about it, let me know in the comments below. If you stuck with me this far, please subscribe and like. It helps me out a bunch. And I'll see you in the next one.